Hi, and welcome to the Spiritual Awakener podcast. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your energy with me. And thank you for honoring yourself because this podcast is going to help you understand so much more about who you are. My life started as a psychologist, as a spiritual psychologist, and I didn't even know that I was spiritual. And that's why I'm known as a spiritual scientist, where we incorporate the science and the spiritual together. The reason why I created this podcast was because I wanted to share spiritual awakening stories with you. I wanted you, as the collective, to realize that you're so much more than you thought you were. We've all had many turning points in our life. We've had many spiritual awakenings, but there usually is one or two really significant ones. So I'm excited to introduce my next guest, where she's going to share with you her spiritual awakening stories. Marnie, thank you so much for being here. How do you pronounce your surname so that my audience can hear it?
Vincolisi.
Vincolisi, is that right?
Italian. It has musical
Beautiful.
Vincolis. Yes.
Beautiful. So, Marnie, thank you for coming on the Spiritual Awakener podcast. Thank you for sharing your energy. And I really know that my listeners are going to have a real an awakening moment listening to your story. So, would you like to share how you are presenting yourself in the world now and what it was that actually created that turning point for you?
I would love to, and I'm grateful that you have me on your show and that I can talk to people worldwide across the sea because I'm here in the States, and so this is just a wonderful
We're
connection.
here in the UK, but essentially my listeners are worldwide. So it's kind of nice to talk to people across the pond, we call it, and yet we don't even need to be in the same room. So cool.
Yes, it's wonderful. Um, so, I realize as you were saying that, our spiritual awakenings aren't always just one big gigantic thing, though that is how it works with some people. But,
Yeah.
I feel, your spiritual awakening doesn't have to be a 2x4 upside your head.
Yeah.
It can be a gentle way of coming in, but I did have a few of those 2x4s. I would say my first awakening was when I was about 19. And
Mm.
um, I followed the Christian religion. We went to church every Sunday with the family. And I was even a Sunday school teacher at 19, and this was in the 60s. So I wore my little mini skirt and I was teaching kids about Christianity.
Wow.
And I realized something's off. This
Yeah.
doesn't seem right. As a young adult, I want things to be fair. And I thought, well, if someone does horrible things all their life, and they're on death row and they come towards the end and they say to the priest or the minister, I believe in Jesus, and and they say, well, you're saved. And it's like, that's not fair. That's not fair. I've been a good person all my life and he gets to be saved just like me. So I started questioning Christianity and sort of stepped out of it. And when you do that, it's like nothing exists. I went into the space of there is no God. And
Yeah.
it didn't last very long. And I started looking into karma. I was like, well, there's a good idea. You know,
Yeah.
there's karma that comes back. And so I started learning yoga and meditation. And this was in the 60s. And yoga, it's hard to believe now, was not that popular back then. And I
Wow.
was in Chicago, and I actually had to go out to a class in the suburbs to take a yoga class.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
it started building, and she got into all the park districts in Chicago, at least on the north side. And I remember having a big event in downtown Chicago. We're all doing yoga out in the streets and being filmed on TV. And
That sounds amazing. Fun. I do a lot of yoga, so I love yoga.
it's sort of
Mhm.
a
Yeah.
start of looking at things differently.
Yeah.
And um, that awakening continued. I studied Scientology. Um,
Mhm.
you're familiar with L. Ron
Yeah.
Hubbard and process. And in that process, there was
But just for my listeners, just explain what Scientology is, just briefly, so people understand.
um, it's a process of going inside and changing how you see things, how you work through things. It's a spiritual growth. And
Mm.
have you ever studied it at all yourself, Susan?
No, but what I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I understand about Scientology is that it's almost like you've got a blank slate. So so that you're not coming in with any preconceived ideas, that you literally could start wherever you want to start and create your life exactly how you want it. Is that kind of how it is?
Yes, and clearing things that have bothered you in the past and moving beyond that.
Yeah,
What I really got out of it was during a process called auditing, is that I saw myself in past lives.
yeah. Wow.
Actually felt it. And one of them that came through was a whole series of tortures. Oh, you're being on the rack, you're being burned at the stake. I mean, all those things that we've
Yeah.
done as spiritual beings. And every time I saw that happening, I saw myself above my body and going, this doesn't hurt. I'm not there. And so it was almost a joke. I came out of that process very light, very free, knowing that, I am this divine spiritual being and the physical body is totally
And that
different.
was just an experience, right? That was just as we're having now, that we are this, and I'm sure if you're listening to this, you're either just stepping onto your spiritual journey, or you're well onto your spiritual journey. And so you understand that there's so much more than this physical vehicle that carries your soul, because actually, as Marnie says, you are this divine being, essentially living your life. Yeah.
Right. And yet this beautiful form of our body is what's giving us our emotional connection to actually really clear things that we can't do as a spirit. So it's such a gift to have a body. And yet when the body's in pain, we're outside of it. And when I work with my clients and they're so concerned about loved ones that are going through, cancer and dying and all the things that they see happening in the body, and I'm telling them, they're not in that body. That is the body that's reacting to what's physically going on. But trust me, their spirit is free. And it really puts my clients at ease, understanding that.
That's a beautiful way, actually, of explaining it. It's, that feeling of, when people are in pain or they are suffering, and boy, have we got a lot of that at the moment, Marnie, with what's been happening in the world. Many people are going through that. And it is the awakening, isn't it? So when we awaken, this ascension, this awakening, when we awaken to remember who we are, it kind of makes us feel, and your clients, I'm sure, feel this, is that, oh, okay, so what they're experiencing is actually their physical body talking to them and saying that, actually, listen to me. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Mm.
it was a wonderful understanding of seeing that. I
Mm.
saw myself in a past life in Germany. I saw myself in Egypt. And my spiritual awakenings have been little bits and pieces where I
Mm.
actually touched those things.
So
But
sort of acknowledgements, they sort of like little wake ups of like, oh wow, that makes sense to me.
yes,
Why I feel that, or why I was feeling that when I was younger, or whatever it is. Mm.
and I don't know how it works for you, but for me, when I'm physically at a place in the world where that happened, I get very emotional. I start sobbing. I mean, I remember crying in front of Coptic jars in front of Egypt, realizing those were the jars I worked with. And I saw many Coptic jars in the museums as we walked through, but there was one set that just tore me apart. I couldn't stop crying. I walked away, came back. So yeah, there's truth.
I've had the opposite. So I've had, like, when I've gone to countries and I've traveled a lot, and when I put my feet down in New Zealand, I've been 3 times, which is incredible for someone from the UK, right? Because it's the other side of the world. I've been 3 times. Every time I go to New Zealand, I feel like I'm home,
Yeah.
literally. So I've had that in Egypt as well. I've been to Egypt, and those feelings of like, like, you actually feel like really connected and really at home. And I think that you either feel that people say, oh, I feel like I've been here before. And in your case, you were feeling, oh my goodness, I'm like really feeling the energy of the emotions of it. And then obviously, you know that there's something there that you need to heal, yeah, from that lifetime,
or
right? That, you know,
or claim or just
or
know.
to claim, yeah, gifts from that lifetime, you know, things that you knew, but you forgot.
Yes. And,
Mm.
I had the same experience in Egypt. When I got off the plane, a man just walked up to me at the airport and said, "Welcome home." Why he chose me to say that, I don't know. And
I had that in New Zealand.
it hit,
Yeah, so weird. Not the same with the man off the plane, but I definitely had that. I was at like a spiritual thing that wasn't even particularly spiritual then. I didn't even know. And they looked at my hands and just went, ah, yes, you feel like home here, don't you? And I went, yeah. So, it's amazing, isn't it?
it was interesting. In New York, as I was waiting to get on the plane, I was walking down and there was no one around me. And I hear a voice, "Marnie." I look around, "Marnie." I keep, "Marnie," 3 times. No one was there. It was like this calling of my spirit going, something's happening.
Yeah.
Um, so,
Wow.
so beautiful. So let's get to another spiritual awakening.
Yeah.
I had a toy company. I made play tents for children, and I called them Pee Wee Teepees. And
Bless me.
I also made costumes, and that was called Wannabe and Company. So for about 15 years, I distributed toys. I went to art shows, traveled throughout the country. And the last year I was running that business, I was getting a message I need to do something different. But I didn't think it was spiritual. I just knew I need to do something different. But
Yeah.
I'm making money. I'm supporting my family. It's like, why stop something that's working?
Yeah, why change? Yeah.
I put 40,000 miles on my van every year. And my van started talking to me that last year. It would break down, never broke down the 14 years I was running the company. That last year, it would break down. It would break down by gas stations. I mean, I was driving along and I heard like a rubber band break. And I was like, that's weird. And the engine started getting slower. I was at an exit of the highway. It was at an incline. I rolled down into a gas station. He fixed
Looked
it.
after.
Yeah.
Totally looked after. Yeah.
Another time, again, I'm driving along out in Lubbock, going to Lubbock, Texas, and I'm in the middle of New Mexico. There's nothing around, and the gas pedal, like all of a sudden, just pushes all the way down to the floor, and there's no acceleration. But I can see a town off in the distance.
Calling to you.
The hood, does something quickly and closes the hood. And I was like, if he can do that, I can do that. I said, why don't you show me what you did? Good thing, because I pull out of town. I'm driving along, boing, it does it again. There's construction workers along the road. I pull off, I do what the man showed me to do. I get back in the car, and these construction workers are looking at me in amazement because they didn't think this blonde could do anything, right?
Yeah, right.
But the one that really got me was I was heading to Chicago to do a holiday show. I sold toys. It's September. This is a big deal. I was going to go to Texas, come back. In Nebraska, my wheels start making this really grinding noise. And I'm going, that's not so good. Pull into a gas station. He says, sorry, ma'am, we don't have a mechanic here. I said, where might I find one? And he says, in the next town. So like an idiot, I jump in my van, drive down another 9 miles to that town, but I was okay. My guides were there. They were helping me. Or, my guides, or was it my divine self? I think they're both the same.
Yeah. So, I mean, we are we're an extension of our guidance, aren't we? So we are this divine light and this divine being, and we have our guides. We have angelic presence. We have our guides, but we have our inner GPS, don't we? And that inner GPS, I believe, is a combination of all of it. And that is our true drive, where literally in your case, driving, but we're actually driven to where we need to go. And would you say right now, so many people are being driven, right?
Oh, yes. And we're here to help them find that path and stay on that path and uncover what's within them.
Yeah.
And
So
the light internal, but it wasn't created. So, okay, pull off into the town. A very small town. It has one cafe, not a restaurant, a cafe, one motel, and a gas station. So I hook off my trailer, we put the van on the hoist, he lifts it up into the air, and the wheel falls off. And he says, "Lady, there was an angel holding that wheel on." I said, "I know."
wow.
I put her there. I said, "I've wondered, when you put angels on your wheels when, it's sort of tough driving and they're going around ka-thump, ka-thump, ka-thump. I don't think they mind, but anyway."
So it's a bit like when we ask the angels to be our parking angels. So, it's like, well, parking angels, can you find me a space? We've got our angels with us all the time. And I think a lot of it is we're just sending that intention out to the universe that we are asking and it is given. Because I don't know about you, Marnie, but I definitely feel we come in to forget is one of the reasons why we come in to forget. So we remember, but we come in saying, right, I've got this body, this physical vehicle, it's going to carry my soul. It's going to tell me when I'm out of alignment with my mission, which is unconditional love, of course. It's also, we're also not going to do this on our own. So we know that we're not on our own. We know that we have everything we need always, but we're not going to remember that straight away. We're gonna remember that when we need to remember that and when it's the right time for us to remember that. But our body is going to be talking to us all the time, like a barometer for our soul.
Yes.
Yeah. Just so if you're listening to this, I thought that might be really helpful for people to hear, because sometimes we think, well, when am I going to find what I'm meant to be doing? Well, actually, what you're meant to be doing is living your joy. And however living your joy appears to you, that is part of your mission, is to live your joy. Anyway, carry on, Marnie.
Because, often my clients will say, "I want to do what you're doing." Do you hear that a lot, Susan? I want to do. And so I help them, because they're in corporate America, they're making a good income. It's like, you don't have to let it all go. And so what I do is I show them, how are you helping one individual? What does your company do? Go down the line and find that one person that it's helping. Well, we're just a power company. I said, oh my goodness. I said, look at how that's helping someone stay warm in their house, give them light. So following that all the way down to, you are helping people, no matter what you do. We are helping each other.
Of service, right? However that service is, it might not be what we do, Marnie, but it is still of service, isn't it?
It is.
It is. It's always of service.
Finding that in your heart. So I realized the mechanic tells me, I don't have the parts for this. It's going to take 3 days to get it in. Obviously, I'm not going to get the holiday show. And the message is getting a little bit louder than it had been earlier the year. So I checked into what appeared to be the Bates Motel, and I used that term from the movie Psycho.
Oh no, right. I was going to say the Bates Motel. I had to be that. Yeah, good.
So I sit down, I look around, I say, okay, it's clean. I'm sitting on the bed. In that moment, I turned to spirit, or whatever my higher self was telling me, and I said, I'm listening, I quit. And in that moment, I stopped my business. And he repaired my fan. I drove home. As I drove over the border to Colorado, where I live, I started to sob. I didn't realize how much stress I was under doing the work, and what a relief it was to know that I don't have to do it anymore.
Yeah, wow.
It was just a beautiful time. But, I've always been an entrepreneur. So it wasn't like I felt I could go out and get a job. I probably could have, but I didn't think of it. So I thought, I better create something new. It took 9 months to develop and realize what I have to do next, which I thought was
like growing the baby, right? 9 months growing the baby. But I just want to say, if you're listening to this, and it's not always advisable to quit your job, right? So if you're wanting to step on fully onto your mission, or you're feeling drawn to do something else, as Marnie actually said before, that you don't have to actually necessarily give it up, but you kind of find where it is within you that you can focus on, you know. And I have a Soul's Mission membership where I help my members do that. But essentially, it doesn't mean you have to literally do what Marnie did, which was just to quit, because it's really important for you to hear that. Go ahead, Marnie.
And that was a 2x4 upside my head. You know, I'm doing this. I went into such a place of trust that I'm listening to spirit. It's going to be there. And during those 9 months, money appeared. I mean, I had an old boyfriend knock on the door, say, I borrowed this money from you, you know, 2 years ago. Here it is. I was like, wow.
Exactly.
And so it just, spirit, my higher self just walked me through it. And
opening the doors, isn't it? Because it's like once you know, she said you felt all that emotion, you know, when you were there in that motel room, and it was like, actually, oh my goodness, I've made that decision. That was the right decision. And then the universe opens, and I can just liken it to, I call it stepping out of the spiritual closet. That was for me. So I literally owned the fact that, yeah, I was a psychologist and a psychotherapist, but I actually owned the fact that I was a channel to source as well. And that's when the doors opened. So it was kind of like, you know, once you say to the universe, and so if you're listening to this, once you declare to the universe, to yourself as well, this is who I am, and I know there's something that I'm meant to be doing and it's not this, that's when you're asking, isn't it? And that's when the universe replies.
yeah, that beautiful place of trust. And you just, I just felt it in my body, felt it in my. So towards the end of that 9 month gestation period, I was presented with, you need to learn Reiki. And probably 5 years before that, it was presented to me. Someone showed me a book on Reiki, hands-on healing. I said, I'm not a healer, threw that away. That wasn't my calling. But this time it made sense to me. I was like, okay, you know, learning Reiki, maybe, you know, channeling divine love. I was a flower child of the 60s. So I always knew that I had a higher energy than what I was seeing. So it sort of made sense at this time. I was also guided to go to Germany to learn Reiki. Now, here in Colorado, we have a spiritual community, very strong in Boulder, Colorado. And I say, you can take a rock and throw a rock in any direction and probably hit a Reiki master and learn it.
I love that. That's so funny. I mean, here in the UK, I trained in Reiki as well. It feels like in my previous life, but you know, we all start somewhere, don't we, with something. And I feel like the frequency of Reiki was brought in and the third dimension, but actually we're not really channeling that now. We're actually channeling something completely different through us, which is source energy. So whatever training, you know, we did or have done or are doing actually will come through exactly what the frequency of what we're experiencing now is, right? But I know that in the UK there are so many people that are trained in Reiki, and that's where they started. And to be honest, I was a medium before that, but that was really one of my turning points as well.
Yeah, I find Reiki as a base. That you're channeling infinite divine love into your body, overflowing it into someone else, overflowing it into life. I mean, most people I train don't become practitioners. It's about how this energy in everyday life.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
beautiful.
So, but I didn't know that then. I was just, again, following spirit, jump on the plane. I've never been out of the States, go to Europe, you know, go to Germany.
Wow. And it's quite a big deal, right? To come over to Europe. It's not, you know, it's not a mean feat. It's like really quite a long way. Yeah.
And so why was I in Germany? Well, I found out, yes, learning Reiki, but my trainer said, oh, let's go into town. It was a small town outside of Frankfurt. And as we walked through the town and looked at different stores, we came upon a church. And there's these gigantic, I can still see them, gigantic wood doors, you know, and as I stood there, I started to sob. And I was like, that's where I was a priest. And something told me to look over my shoulder. And as I looked over my shoulder up on the hill, I could see the ruins of a castle. And again, I began to cry. I said, that's where I was tortured.
Wow.
hence the reason
Profound.
why I was in Germany. We were walking just through the forest and we came upon a small church on a hill. And again, I began to cry. And I said, that's where I was a little boy. So it was reclaiming that part of myself and giving value to what I saw in my mind's eye when I saw those past lives, this is truth. And as I came back, I remember calling my boyfriend from the airport in New York City, and I said, this is it. This is it. I'm going to learn Reiki. I'm going to do this. I'm going to become a teacher, and I'm going to share this with people, because I was a novice. And as I learned all of this, I realized this is so easy. This is so simple. I mean, in one class, that first class, you got the energy just like that. And as a Reiki master teacher, channeling the energy, I open them up. I find it like lines of light that I connect them to this kind of light in the universe, and all of a sudden they open up that quick. And many of the people,
doorway, isn't it? It's a doorway to really connecting with your soul's mission.
And that's why I called my company Light Internal. People say, oh, light eternal. It's like, no, it's in you. And this is what I do, whether I do it in my counseling or in the classes that I have online. It's all about you finding that light and claiming it and shining.
That's from my book. It's called Awaken the Light Within Your Heart, right? Coming out this year. And it is about awakening that light within your heart. So you're talking about it from that perspective, and I'm talking about it from my perspective. And it's so interesting how we've come together and actually we're speaking the same language, but we're just showing it in the world in a different way. Amazing. Yeah.
Because people hear things differently. So we all have to have our own process. They'll hear it from you, they'll hear it from me different, so.
Yeah, perfect. So Marnie, I want you to tell people about your book, because if you're listening to this on YouTube and you're visually seeing us on video, you'll see that Marnie has this beautiful background. I've got the diamonds. She's got this beautiful golden background with flowers. And so there's a reason for that, Marnie, right? So tell us the reason for that.
There is a reason for this. So let's see, let me get on my timeline. So while I still had my toy company, I had discovered I never met my father. Abandoned since I was a baby, abandoned my mother and our family, and I was never guided to look for him until I was about 40. And there's a whole story to this, and I know we're probably running out of time, but the name of the book is They Did the Best They Could.
They did the best they could.
Discovering your path to compassion. And so when I use that title, when I say that to someone, they did the best they could, I often ask them, is there anyone in your life that has upset you, that has hurt you, that has pulled on your heartstrings, and yet in your heart of hearts, they did the best they could? And most people will agree, yes, there's someone in my life about that. So this whole book is talking about my journey, my adventure of how I found my father, what happened, the synchronicities that I found between my family, his family, things that happened, unbelievable stories that are in the book, following that memoir of my Italian heritage, of what went on with my father and my family and my mom who had dementia. I mean, just so many stories. But the second half of the book is that guidance of when that happens to you, what do you do to get past it? So we don't have to hold it in our hearts and in our minds and feel that we've been injured and hurt. We're not. We're this beautiful divine being, and stepping into that power is what the second half of the book shows people. But the first half is pretty entertaining. So.
Yeah. It sounds fun. It sounds fun to listen to that story, and and then actually have the action steps as well of how you can heal those parts of you. So Marnie, tell us how you help people. Obviously, we've got your book, which presumably they can find on Amazon, which will be in the show notes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So over the years, Reiki was my beginning training, opening people to that divine essence within themselves, knowing that you're love. This is what we do. Our job is to be love and to send that love out and to keep that love for ourselves. So I show people how to do that in my spiritual counseling. I take them down timelines, clearing energies. As a psychologist, as you know, we open people up to information, but as energy workers, we can actually clear those things that are there. But I do it in tandem with them. I don't do anything for them. I do it with them.
Exactly. Yeah. Perfect.
And I'll give them
so empowering them to heal themselves. Yeah.
Staying in that place of empowerment. And so that's how I see working with people. And when I say we work on timelines, some people always like, well, I want to clear my past life. Well, there's more than past lives. There's future lives. There's parallel lives that run simultaneously with this life. And there's parallel universes. So if we just clear a past life, we haven't gotten the whole deal. So it's about not leaving any stone unturned, and intuitively, I know what timeline we need to go on to clear the core issue so the other ones drop out. And then
amazing.
So
and how can people find you, Marnie? What's if people are listening to this and in this now moment, I know the show notes will give all your details, but just tell people your website so they can get hold of you.
lightinternal.com. They can, Google my name, Marnie Vincolisi, on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm out there, and finding me at Marnie@lightinternal.com or info@lightinternal.com. I'd love to hear their stories, how we compare, how I can help them understand their story differently, and perhaps clear things that are running in their timeline that they don't need to be doing that anymore.
That sounds amazing.
Divine beings.
And are you so you work very much on the spiritual level, of course, yeah, but you're also working in guiding them and helping people, so in a way it's sort of a combination of the spiritual but the coaching as well, and helping people move forward.
Right. And there's, when you go on Amazon, I've got 5 books. I've got 3 books on bringing in that divine essence, finding your inner gifts uncovered, claiming your inner gift. I wrote a children's book about a house, the house who found its home. And it's a story about a house that was living in a place that was too tight and too bright and too noisy. So the house took off to find a new place to live.
I love that.
So and it's in Spanish online as well. So there's lots of information out there that I'd love to share with people and get connected.
And just to say that the background is the background of Marnie's new book. Okay. And so that's why I was bringing it up, because then when you see the book, you'll be like, oh yeah, I remember it. And for those of you listening on audio, it's bright golden yellow and it has flowers. Are they particular flowers, Marnie?
Yeah, they're just sort of purpley flowers, which I don't know. I just love it. So they did the best they could. Really go into your heart, and even if you don't buy the book, know that okay, we're back.
We're back. Yeah, we're back. Sorry about that, guys. Sometimes, with technology, it happens that way. Yeah, so they did the best they could. And what Marnie was saying was, even if you choose not to read the book or buy the book, actually remember what, Marnie?
Remember that the people that hurt you, they really did the best they could. Look down their timeline, see how they were hurt, see that they were just reacting from something that was injuring them, and go into your heart and just be compassionate and forgive yourself first and forgive them. Yes.
And Marnie, would it be possible for my listeners to reach out to you and mention that they heard you on my podcast? And I know you're going to put this on your YouTube channel as well, which is amazing. And if they mentioned that, we've had our conversation, is it possible for them to have a chat with you?
Absolutely. That would be wonderful. Yes.
Brilliant. Okay. So take Marnie up on that offer that, if you mentioned the podcast, you mentioned that you've heard the conversation on the Spiritual Awakener podcast, and you'd like to have a chat with her, you'd like to, see if it's a fit to work with her, maybe 15-minute chat with her, then take her up on that offer and definitely mention the Spiritual Awakener podcast. All right. So, Marnie, we're coming to the end of the podcast. Doesn't it fly by? But I like to keep it short so that, those people that are listening to these things in their car and on their journeys, people don't have a lot of time these days. So it's kind of nice to keep them short, but with all the information. And so really just to, recap, that your journey started with, being a very religious journey, brought up religious, so on, even teaching religion and leading you to have these awakenings where you realized that you were that channel to source and that it wasn't outside of you. And I think religion is perhaps taught that something's outside of you. Yeah. Whereas, it is, and that's not, to say that religion is not helpful, and it might be helpful for some people, but wherever you are in your journey is perfect. But if you remember that you are source, that you are this divine being of light, that you are God's source energy, and that there isn't a separation to that.
Yeah.
And there's only the belief that we feel separated, and we feel separated from perceptions in childhood which are triggered from lifetimes before. And so those lifetimes before, perhaps we've been killed, as Marnie's experience, and so have I, killed at the stake, whatever it is, all of those different things that have happened. But you're here now for a really, really important reason. This is not just university. This is master's degree. This is like PhD level, doctorate. You came here to experience this time and to really remember who you are. And it's not about playing small. It's about shining your light out to the world and really owning who you are, and knowing that even if you touch one person in this life, then that is your mission.
Absolutely. And that
So,
light,
Marnie,
shine your
pardon?
light, shine your light that's within you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, what I love as well about your story, Marnie, is that, working corporately, it doesn't matter what job you're in, whatever you're listening to this, and whatever job you're in, whether you work in finance, whether you do oil, whether you do sweeping the streets, whether you do anything, it doesn't matter. It is about who you are, as remembering that you are light in this world. Guides are saying to me, tell people to get out in nature, to really honor themselves and remember that there is no separation from nature, from Mother Earth, and no separation from God. So, Marnie, thank you so much for being here on the Spiritual Awakener. Definitely have a listen to this again, get all Marnie's information that she shared. Please share this if you feel it will help somebody else. Like and subscribe on my YouTube channel, which is just my name, Susan Kennard, and follow the Spiritual Awakener podcast, because I get to interview really amazing people just like Marnie every single week. And if you've got a spiritual awakening story that you wish to share with me, then find me on susankennard.co.uk or susan@susankennard.co.uk. And we'd love to hear from you. Much love for now. Much love, Marnie. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful. Okay.
And we'll see you all very soon. Much
Namaste.
love, guys.
Namaste.
Namaste.